Black woman asked to switch VIP seat. Entire team fired after one call. What would you do if someone tried to take away something that was rightfully yours, just because they believed they were more important than you? Imagine sitting in your seat, minding your business, when suddenly, entitlement walks up and demands what belongs to you. On what seemed like an ordinary flight, one woman's quiet strength turned a blatant act of privilege into a powerful lesson, one that no one on board would ever forget. The situation unraveled with unexpected twists, tension thick enough to cut with a knife, and a final outcome that left everyone stunned. This is a story of resilience, shocking arrogance, and karma striking back in full force. Before we dive in, where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments. If you love real-life stories about standing up for what's right, fairness, and justice, make sure to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more incredible tales. Your support helps us bring these powerful stories to even more people. Now, let's get into it. The gentle hum of the airplane engines filled the air as Maya Carter settled into her luxurious first-class seat. With a deep breath, she let her shoulders relax, allowing herself a rare moment of peace. It had been an exhausting week, endless meetings, high-stakes negotiations, and a schedule that barely allowed her a chance to breathe. But now, for the first time in days, she could unwind. Her window seat gave her the perfect view of the airport tarmac, the golden hues of the setting sun painting the sky in warm oranges and pinks. It was a breathtaking sight, a moment of serenity she had earned, a well-deserved reward for years of relentless dedication and hard work. Maya hadn't always lived a life of comfort. She grew up in a modest neighborhood, raised by parents who taught her the power of perseverance, self-respect, and resilience. She had clawed her way to the top, breaking barriers in an industry that wasn't always welcoming to women like her. Now, as the founder and CEO of a thriving tech company, she was on her way to finalize a deal that could take her business to a whole new level. Adjusting the silk scarf around her neck, she reached for her sleek leather briefcase, the scent of polished leather mixing with the subtle fragrance of coffee lingering in the cabin. The atmosphere was calm, sophisticated, just as first class should be. A flight attendant passed by, offering a polite smile as he handed her a glass of sparkling water. Maya took a sip, letting the crisp bubbles fizz against her lips. Everything was perfect, but perfection, as Maya was about to learn, never lasts for long. Just as she was settling in, a sudden commotion at the front of the cabin snapped her out of her thoughts. She looked up, her eyes landing on a tall, blonde woman striding into first class, an unmistakable air of entitlement surrounding her. The woman carried herself like she owned the plane, her designer handbag dangling from her arm like a trophy. Trailing behind her was another woman, a brunette, slightly shorter, with a nervous energy about her. Their conversation, though hushed, was just loud enough for Maya to catch snippets of it. "This is ridiculous. Can you believe the airline would make such a mistake?" the blonde woman hissed, rolling her eyes dramatically. Her friend responded with an uneasy chuckle. "I don't know, Evelyn. Maybe it's just an error. They'll fix it, I'm sure." Maya could feel the tension before they even reached her row. Something about the way the blonde, Evelyn, carried herself told her exactly what was coming. Sure enough, Evelyn stopped directly beside Maya's seat. Her icy blue eyes flickered over Maya, and for a split second, Maya could see the calculation behind them. Then Evelyn spoke. "Excuse me," she said, her voice clipped and sharp. Maya looked up, meeting her gaze with steady calmness. "Yes." Evelyn gave a polite but obviously forced smile before gesturing toward Maya's seat. "I believe there's been a mistake. This seat isn't meant for you." A slow blink. Maya tilted her head slightly. "I'm sorry. This is my seat," Evelyn continued, her tone dripping with condescension. "You must have been assigned the wrong one. I always sit here." Maya arched an eyebrow. "This is seat 1A. I reserved it weeks ago." Evelyn's fake smile twitched at the edges. "Well, I'm a gold tier member with this airline. I always receive priority seating." She waved a dismissive hand. "You might be more comfortable elsewhere." A familiar prickle of frustration ran down Maya's spine. She had seen this before. The unspoken assumption. The belief that her place, her success, her achievements, were up for negotiation. She exhaled slowly, keeping her expression unreadable. I'm quite comfortable where I am. Thanks. Evelyn's lips pressed into a thin line. Her friend, clearly uncomfortable, shifted awkwardly beside her. Before she could say another word, a flight attendant appeared beside them. His professional demeanor held an air of quiet authority. Is there an issue here? He asked, glancing between the two women. Evelyn immediately turned to him, her voice dramatic, laced with exaggerated concern. Yes, actually. There's been a mistake. This seat is supposed to be mine. I need it resolved immediately. The flight attendant looked at Maya. She simply held up her boarding pass without a word. He took it, examined it carefully, then nodded. This is indeed your seat, Miss Carter. Evelyn's mask of politeness cracked. Her eyes flashed with disbelief. That can't be right. Maybe she bought a last-minute upgrade. People do that, don't they? Maya held her gaze steadily, choosing her words carefully. I suggest you take your assigned seat. This conversation is over. Evelyn's friend tugged at her sleeve, whispering urgently, trying to pull her away from further embarrassment. But Evelyn wasn't done. You don't understand who I am, she muttered under her breath, eyes narrowing. The flight attendant cleared his throat. Ma'am, if you have further concerns, you're welcome to speak with a supervisor. Evelyn clenched her jaw. Finally, with an exaggerated huff of frustration, she turned sharply on her heel, dragging her reluctant friend toward the front of the cabin. Maya exhaled, leaning back into her seat. The moment had passed, but the weight of it lingered. Around her, she could feel the silent stares of other passengers. She had been through this before, and she knew this wasn't over yet. What happened next? Let's just say, karma had plans for Evelyn, and she never saw it coming. Stay tuned for part 2. Black woman refuses to give up VIP seat. One call later, karma delivers. What would you do if someone looked at you not as a person, but as an obstacle to what they believed was rightfully theirs? If someone demanded that you move, not because of any real mistake, but simply because they thought they were more important? That's exactly what happened to Maya Carter, a woman who had worked tirelessly to earn her place in the world, only to be met with an entitled demand mid-flight. But what happened next? Let's just say, karma was watching. Before we dive in, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. And if you love powerful, real-life stories about resilience, justice, and standing your ground, make sure to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more inspiring tales. Your support helps us bring these incredible stories to even more people. Now, let's get into it. The soft hum of the airplane engines filled the cabin as Maya flipped through her sleek, leather-bound notebook. She had always carried it with her, filled with notes, strategies, and carefully outlined plans. This trip wasn't just another flight. It was the beginning of something huge. The international partnership she was about to finalize could launch her company to unprecedented heights. She adjusted her reading glasses, her mind focused. But just as she started reviewing her notes, the atmosphere in first class shifted. A faint commotion at the front of the cabin caught her attention. The doors had just opened to allow the last few passengers to board when a tall, platinum-blonde woman swept inside. Everything about her, the way she carried herself, the slight tilt of her chin, the sharp flicker of her eyes as they scanned the rows, made it clear she expected the world to revolve around her. Maya saw the exact moment the woman noticed her. A flicker of curiosity. A slow, almost imperceptible narrowing of the eyes. Then, just like that, judgment. Maya had seen that look before. The unspoken question hanging in the air. What are you doing here? The woman paused in the aisle, her polished heels clicking against the cabin floor. A slight crease appeared between her perfectly sculpted brows as she took in the sight of Maya, seated comfortably in 1A. Then, with an exaggerated sigh, she waved down a passing flight attendant. Excuse me, she said sharply, her voice crisp, cultured, but carrying an undeniable edge of impatience. The flight attendant, A young man with neatly combed hair and a slightly nervous demeanor approached with a polite smile. "Yes, ma'am? How can I assist you?" "There must be a mistake," she announced, gesturing dramatically toward Maya's seat. "My seat is supposed to be here." Maya's stomach clenched, though her expression remained unreadable. She already knew where this was going. The flight attendant tapped on his tablet, scanning through the passenger list. "What seat number, ma'am?" "1A, of course. I always book 1A, the woman replied, her voice carrying the effortless arrogance of someone used to getting her way. She flicked a manicured finger toward Maya, her tone dripping with dismissiveness. But clearly, there's been some kind of mix-up. Maya kept her posture relaxed, but inside, she braced herself. She knew this script. She had lived it before, in boardrooms at high-profile events, in spaces where people assumed she didn't belong. The flight attendant checked the list once more, then smiled apologetically. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but 1A is correctly assigned. Miss Carter here booked it in advance." The woman's jaw tightened. "And what exactly am I supposed to do about that?" she asked, her voice rising slightly, irritation creeping in. "I'm a loyal customer of this airline, a very loyal customer. Surely there's some kind of accommodation you can make." The attendant shifted uncomfortably. "We can try to arrange something." "There's nothing to arrange," Maya cut in, her voice steady and firm. She turned her gaze toward the woman, holding it without hesitation. "This is my seat, and I intend to keep it." A flicker of shock crossed the woman's face, as if she had expected Maya to quietly yield. "Well," the woman said, forcing a tight smile, "I'm sure you'd be more comfortable in another seat. Perhaps in business class." Maya's expression didn't waver. "I'm perfectly comfortable where I am." The air in first class seemed to shift. The quiet murmur of conversation had stilled. Other passengers pretended to focus on their books and tablets, but Maya could feel their curiosity, their silent expectations. "Let me handle this," the flight attendant said quickly, trying to defuse the growing tension. He turned to Maya, his voice polite but laced with an undertone that grated on her nerves. "Miss Carter, would you mind moving to another seat? Perhaps 2C? It's still in first class, and it would allow us to accommodate Mrs. Stokes." Ah, there it was. So that was her name. Mrs. Evelyn Stokes. The kind of name that carried legacy, country clubs, and generations of wealth. The kind of name that came with the unshakable belief that rules could be bent, and that people like Maya were meant to adjust, to move aside. Maya leaned back in her seat, folding her arms. "I booked this seat for a reason," she said calmly. "I won't be moving." Evelyn's face darkened. "Unbelievable," she muttered, loud enough for Maya to hear. She turned to the flight attendant, her voice dripping with irritation. "Do you even know who I am? I'm a Platinum Elite member. I don't think this is how you want to treat one of your most loyal customers." The flight attendant swallowed, glancing between Evelyn and Maya. His hesitation said everything. He knew Evelyn had connections. And yet, he also knew Maya was within her rights. After a moment, he sighed. "I'll get the supervisor." As he disappeared down the aisle, Evelyn turned back to Maya, her lips curling into a saccharine, insincere smile. "You could have avoided all this, you know," she said, voice mockingly sweet. "But I suppose some people just don't understand the meaning of compromise." Maya tilted her head, studying her. "Compromise," she repeated softly, as if testing the word. "Interesting choice." Evelyn's smile faltered. Before she could reply, the flight supervisor arrived, a middle-aged woman with an air of authority, her polished heels clicking sharply against the cabin floor. "Is there a problem here?" she asked, glancing between Maya and Evelyn. Evelyn jumped in before anyone could speak. "Yes, there's a problem. I'm supposed to be in seat 1A, but somehow she ended up here." The supervisor's gaze landed on Maya. And in that moment, just for a second, Maya saw it. A flicker of recognition. It was gone as quickly as it came. "Miss Carter," the supervisor began carefully. "Would you be willing to move, just to resolve this quickly?" Maya's fingers tightened around the armrest. She looked at the supervisor, then at Evelyn, then at the other passengers, waiting for her to yield. "No," she said simply. And just like that,